All right, and welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and thank you all so much for joining me today for a podcast I'm really excited to do, and it's the Q&A podcast. And I'm going to do this one, a couple times a year to really give you guys an opportunity to ask the questions that you want. I was thrilled with all of the messages I got, either in the comments below the post or the direct messages. You guys just really showed up with some great questions. So thank you all very much for that. Because I had so many questions, I'm really going to stick with the ones that are relative to the general population. So I'm really going to honor those ones, but I thank you all for participating and your willingness to ask. And so I've kind of sat with these questions a little bit, and I chimed in and connected with the guides, 3 Guides of the Light, the Rainbow Council, and a couple Ascended Masters to try and help bring some answers to these questions. So I know they'll be around as I'm talking today as well, so we're just going to flow with it and see how it goes. So again, thank you guys. I'm excited about this. So let's dive right in for the goodness. So one of the first questions, or the first question I got was, someone said, I did a reading recently and some things were not correct. Most were spot on. Is that normal? Great question. So the answer to this would be yes and no. Again, with spirit, everything is going to be kind of within the shades of gray. And the reason why I say this is there's so many variables. So first of all, it depends on who it is, which medium you're talking to, which channeler, which intuitive. Is it somebody that has a really good credibility to them? Is it someone you've had several readings with before and you already trust the content coming through? If it's a first time reading, the part where this is kind of challenging is that sometimes the information that's coming through are things that are accurate up to that point, and then sometimes the information coming through is also perhaps what might occur in the future, what is to come. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the pieces of the reading to fall into place. So I would say if it's about within 3, maybe 6 months or so of the reading and nothing, like those other pieces didn't fall into place, then I would question the source of where that came from. But at the same time, I would also want to shine a light on the fact that in a reading, the person who is doing the reading for you, they're tuning in or connecting to a snapshot of the highest probability up to that point. And that snapshot can change based on free will and the variability of options as we move forward. So they may get the snapshot as it stands in that moment, but things that are connected to other people's free will that are involved in your journey can alter the course of something. So that's one reason why it could maybe feel inaccurate in some aspects. The other piece is sometimes it's difficult to interpret exactly what something means in a reading, even for the medium or the channeler. Sometimes they may get real snippets of information. And so the medium or the channeler has to be very sure they're interpreting the information as clear as possible with any personal anecdote or personal opinion or personal influence in how they're interpreting it. So they have to really give it as they get it. And so sometimes there can be a mix-up there as to their interpretation of what the message is, which is why we always encourage spirit to come through with as much clarity as possible. Like, give me more, color this more, give me more detail. So it could be that. And the other thing too is sometimes the messages can be coming through in many different ways in readings. It can be coming through visions, feelings, insights, just divine knowings. It can be a mishmash. And so it could also be that the spirit coming through was bringing through a modality that medium or channeler isn't as familiar with. It might be something new. Like for me, just the other day in a client session, Spirit taught me a new way of understanding a certain message. I was like, oh, I've never been given it that way before. I've never seen this, but now I understand this to be this and this and this. So I was learning in the session, which is cool. So that's why, again, it's hard to say just yes or no because of the variability. However, I will say, if you know the background of the medium or channeler, and you know that it to be really accurate, it should have an accuracy in it. So it may be that it just hasn't happened yet. If you don't know the background of the medium or the channeler, or haven't heard word of mouth that, they're really good or whatnot, then you may want to kind of be on the fence to see the accuracy, the percentage of accuracy within their readings. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit. And last thing I want to say on that too is the biggest thing is to feel into the truths of what comes through in a reading. Feel what really resonates with you. And something that doesn't, feel free to kind of take it off and leave it on the side. You don't have to take it all on. So if something wasn't spot on, it might be for a reason, that it was a message that was misinterpreted, or it was a message that wasn't necessarily meant for you and was actually meant for somebody else. There's many reasons. So again, I hope that helps to kind of color that answer for you. All right. Next one is, why should I strive to be my best self? Would the world know if I did or didn't? That's a good question. So, why should I strive to be my best self? I mean, I would say, do you want to? Where does your desire lie? There isn't a need for the soul to have to. The soul has a desire in coming earthside to learn and experience things. But that may be in various different ways. So the why should come from within. The why should be an internal pull or push happening within that is calling you to strive to desire to be that best self. But that's not always easy, because to become that best self, we have to be willing to look at all sides of ourselves. And many people, although they would want to in theory, when it comes down to the practicality of it and having to really look at themselves, it's too daunting and too scary. And so there's a balance between that, the willingness of how far someone's willing to go to discover their best self, versus what's safe and secure. So the why should I strive is entirely up to you. Why are you feeling the pull? That's what I would ask you. Why are you feeling the pull to? What would that fulfill for you? And so the second question that came with this was, would the world know if I did or didn't? And the answer to that is yes and no as well. Because the way the guide showed me this when I was pondering this question is, any change that happens in the world has to originate somewhere, has to start somewhere. So someone or something has to have a willingness to create the first ripple. And that ripple then creates more ripples and triggers an energetic ability or a dormant energy to come alive in somebody else to then shift and change. So the world, in a sense, would know if you didn't, because you wouldn't be creating that ripple. Does that matter? Again, that's up to you. But at the same time, the world will respond to the ripples that you create. The world will absolutely respond to the ripples you create, and they do to every single person's ripple on this planet. Which is why when we're all working to strive to be our best selves, or all working to do good things for others or better humanity, it creates a ripple effect. It's that 100 monkeys theory, that you get a higher proportion of energy doing the same thing. It floats that energy into the collective, and then that almost like rains down on other areas that then encourage those energies to start thinking with a higher consciousness as well. So, I think the world may not recognize if you don't, but your soul will. But again, your free will as a human allows you the opportunity to choose how far you want to go, no matter what. But if you do strive to be your best self, if you do strive to create a ripple of sorts that leads you to feel your full self, your best self, the world will feel it. And the world will be better because of it. That you inherently make a difference. You matter. Something to ponder. That's a good one. Okay, the next question is, when will this pandemic be over? Oh my gosh, is that ever a great question? So this one's a really challenging answer. And it's a challenging answer because the way that I understand it up to this point is we were on a trajectory of shifting and change, and things were shifting and changing in the right directions. But there are many levels, just like in government, there's many levels of action that create the movement. And some of those levels get infiltrated with kind of, darker ideas, darker plans, or more narrow-minded service to self type plans, which kibosh other things. The same thing happens in some spiritual levels, spiritual realms and dimensions. There's infiltration of things. And so what's happening right now is there's an entire reworking of energy happening not only on the planet, but in the collective. But I still feel every time I tune in that we're still on the side of the higher percentage of shift and change in our favor. So we're still making really good movement. But this potential, or the reality, however you wish to see it, of a third wave is not something that I was necessarily expecting. But when I look at the energy signatures of what's happening, I'm actually not surprised, because it seems like more needs to be shifted and changed to allow the full infiltration of consciousness that is desired through this experience, right? This opportunity for people to turn inwards, because we talked about it so much last year about the waterfall and turning inwards and getting to know your own truth and your personal truth so that you can move through the next years of consciousness. And it seems like, although many people have, and again, we've pushed past that falling backwards point, what it feels like is we're in a little bit of a lag right now for more people on a collective level to step into their truths and their consciousness and their willingness to awaken and open. So that is the one level that I can speak on it. I can't speak on it on a biological level about how viruses mutate and morph, pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine. I can't hit those levels here. I don't have the expertise for it. I have my own opinions. I don't have the expertise. But I can speak on the spiritual level of how this is affecting the planet in terms of growth. So if we get put into, I know some areas in the world already are in a lockdown. If we're in another round of lockdown, I would take that as an opportunity for people to, again, turn inwards deeper. If you've already cleaned out a lot of your internal closet, then you can sit in a fair amount of peace through that. Again, I'm talking spiritually because I understand there are economic issues. There's lots of impacts of that. But I would encourage you in this opportunities to look at where your triggers are and why you're being triggered because of it. And then what you can do about it and what is of your control within the situation that's happening. Because again, you can control that personal ripple of what you decide to put out in the world because of it. So that's kind of my understanding with the pandemic. When I tuned in earlier in the year, in the fall and earlier in the year, the idea was that things would start to open June, July. I was still feeling that. Now things seem to be shifting, and when I tune into spirit, they actually can't give me an idea right now. So this would be a good question to ask again, maybe by summer. So if I do another Q&A by summer, is to ask that again by summer. And also, they're saying they will tell me as soon as they can to give me an insight, but there's so much being reworked in the higher realms right now energetically to help shift what's happening on the planet. So it's so intricately woven, it's hard to give a clear answer. So I hope that helps for now. Okay, the next question is, what can one do, practice, or open themselves to with the intention of building their connection with spirit, to remember the inherent truth of our oneness? Love this question. This is a great question. So I really tuned into the guides for this one. I was like, okay guys, what is the answer? What is the piece for this? And they gave me a few. So the first one was to connect to your place of feel. So connect to the place where you learn to feel your way through life. This is particularly challenging for those that have a very analytical brain, because again, not everyone, but some that are very analytical have almost lost the ability to be in touch with feeling their way through life. They're like, well, you just think it. It either works or it doesn't. It's A, B, or C. They forget that there can be blends based on feel. So if you find that you're a very analytical person, it's to get back in touch with feel first. Learn how to feel again. Allow yourself to experience things feeling based. And an example of that, they're showing me right now, the three guides in the light are saying for some people that have a really hard time getting back into feel, experience it with cooking, with taste. That's really cool. So they're saying, if you don't know how to step into feel, experience what it feels like to eat certain foods. And they're showing me bright like mangoes and strawberries and fruits and really juicy type things. When you taste it, instead of just eating it and being like, yum, really good, this is great. But close your eyes, taste the fruit and experience the fruit in your mouth. What is the texture? What is the flavor? Is it room temperature? Is it cold? What does that make you feel? When you eat that, again, I'm seeing mangoes and papayas, but when you eat that, does that make you feel happy? Does it make you feel peaceful? Does it make you feel energized and ready to do a workout? Does it totally turn you off and you're like, oh, that's horrible? Get back to feel. So use sensory ways and experiential ways with like tangible 3D-ness to get back into feel. You can also do this with music. For some people who are very in touch with music, music can bring you right back into feel and you can jump right back into that alignment. But yeah, food, that's a neat one. I wouldn't have thought of that. So connecting back to your place of feel. And once you recognize how you can feel your way through something, you can feel your way through a bowl of magical fruit, then you can come back to applying that same idea to feeling your way through situations, through conversations, through choice points in your life. So that's the first one. The second one is to dive into your fears and triggers, which is kind of what we were talking about a few above in the question above. But when we dive into our fears and triggers and we then make them inert, we make room for more consciousness. So if you notice you are triggered by something in your life and it's causing you a fear response or a judgment response, if you're willing to dive into it and then find out where the root of it is and mend it, heal it, release it, thank it, whatever you have to do, you then create more space for consciousness to come in, not only because of the space made, but from the lesson you learned in completing that whole experience. So it'd be diving in to your triggers and judgments and looking at what's there. The other thing too, though, is also diving in with the same kind of consciousness to your skills and abilities and honoring what you can do and what you're capable of. Because oftentimes we are so quick to talk down what we're really good at. We kind of are like super extra humble. And someone will be like, you did a really great job, say, painting that painting. It's amazing. Oh yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, no. And what you're doing is you're selling yourself short a little bit from receiving an energy of gratitude and an energy of completion and achievement, which is equally as nourishing. So it's not about feeding the ego like you're so amazing or I'm so amazing because of this, but it's allowing yourself to balance out the work that you're doing and checking out your triggers and such with the skills that you have. And again, this creates space for wholeness and your higher consciousness can come into this beautiful sphere of wholeness. And then again, the other one which they said, which we've talked about too, is to recognize the values of the ripples you make. So really coming back to that idea that like you matter. And if you really recognize in your mind that you matter on this planet and the ripples you make every day when you walk out of your house, when you wake up in the morning, when you connect with clients, when you go to the grocery store, those small acts of kindness, the things that you choose to do create a ripple. And when you start to flow with that magic, you'll see that magic flows back with you. And when you get into the beautiful cyclical nature of that magic flowing to you, you then have more access to go up that spiral of consciousness and receive more and more insights to self. So those are the three main things. So connecting to your place of feel, diving into your fears and triggers and accomplishments as well, and then recognizing the value of your ripples. And so again, the ways in which that looks specifically is so different for every person. But if you take those 3 avenues, or maybe even make a list of what those things are, then you kind of have like a treasure map to follow of discovering self. It's pretty amazing. Okay, when does the age of Aquarius begin? We are in the age of Aquarius now. So we are in the upswing of Aquarius, which is really exciting, which is, if we look back historically at times of changes of the great ages, anytime there's been a change into the next age, there's kind of like a carryover where one ends and arcs this way and the next one starts. And so we're already in the upward arc of Aquarius. And that's usually when there's a big change in consciousness on the planet, a big step up to a way of being. So we're right in it. We're right in the beginnings of it. And yeah, it's a perfect time to just be stepping forward and discovering who you are, becoming who you are, releasing past burdens, and just honoring this experience on this planet with a desire to know consciousness, because that's what Aquarius is all about, bringing in consciousness from above. Okay, this next question I really liked too, and it is, I'm wondering how souls determine when they jump in or enter the unborn child. Is it in the womb? Love it. Love this question. So there's different times in which a soul can come into the body. And I'm going to give you the general explanation because, again, it varies. As with most things in the spirit world, there's so much variability based on what the soul needs to learn. But on average, it is a little bit later on after conception. It's usually around the time of the heartbeat is when, not even quite, I'm trying to amalgamate several different experiences I've had with it. So let me go back further. Okay, thank you. So first of all, the soul of a baby coming in, and I call it a baby soul, although it is a full soul. It's not baby or adult. It's coming into a baby. So the soul of the baby will often be around the family for a while before the mother is even pregnant. And the soul will come and observe the family they're going to be coming into to get a sense of it, to kind of blend with the energies and really kind of, take a bit of a crash course on what they're coming into. So the soul's already often around, and I've seen that in times where I've literally seen the soul watching the person while we're in a reading. And then once the person gets pregnant, sometimes they can start right at the point of a heartbeat is when the soul will start to be connecting with the body that's being made. Or sometimes it's even up to about kind of that, not quite 3 months, but maybe about 2 months, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, when they'll start connecting more. But during the time in which the baby is still in the tummy and growing, the soul will come in and out. And so it doesn't spend all its time, it's connected, but it doesn't spend all of its time in the body, which is why sometimes women will have those experiences where, they're like, I don't feel anything, the baby hasn't moved in so long. And it's like the soul isn't really there at that point and it's busy doing something else. And then there's other times when it's really involved in the body and it'll be moving a whole ton. So the real full connection usually, and again, this is general, but usually comes at the moment after birth. Most souls are not a part of coming through the birth canal because most don't need that experience either in energetic experience of literally being squeezed with massive force through the birth canal is very painful for the baby, so the soul usually won't be there, just like often the souls aren't usually there at the moment of impact in death. They'll usually leave fraction of a second before. So with a baby, they usually pop in right after, and I can say my personal experience with this was I could see my daughter's spirit watching me while I was in labor with her, and then once she came out, they were holding her up like this, and I saw her soul, which was floating there as an orb, this beautiful orb, go into her body, and it went into her body, and she went and then started crying, and I could see the delay, and I couldn't even believe I was watching this happen because it wasn't really in a frame of mind of meditating at that moment, I'll tell you that. But she came in right after. And then I have to say too, though, there's times even after a baby is born where the soul will spend more time on the other side still, kind of coming back and forth still. And that's the times when you see your newborn baby sleeping so soundly, you're almost afraid that they're not alive. Souls will come and go. And I remember one time I was nursing my son, and he popped out of his body, and his little soul was like, "Hi, Mom." And I remember I almost flipped my lid because I couldn't even believe that was happening, right? And then he went right back in his body. So there's so many ways and timings as to when the soul comes in, but on average, the soul will wait to fully bind until after it's born. But there are cases where the soul will come through before, but they will come in and out of the body throughout pregnancy. So I hope that kind of answers your question. In terms of twins, because I know this kind of went into twins, there's a whole other variability with that. Sometimes there'll be two twins that are like deciding to come in together, and then at the last minute, one might pull out and say, "No, I'm not going to," and that's when one baby survives, and the other twin will often be that baby's lifetime guide as a spirit guide. Other times there's a potential for twins to come in, but one's like, "No, I'm not coming in," so then it doesn't happen, it doesn't materialize, and only one baby grows. So there's lots of different ways in which it can happen, but it's this beautiful mystery, and it seems like the more I ask spirit questions about it, the more questions I have, because it's as mysterious and intricately woven as death is. So, but beautiful question. Okay, the next one is so someone was saying that they were noticing changes and an increase in their remote viewing ability and in their clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance in the last few months. What's going on? And so remote viewing is the ability to see, for those of you that don't know, is the ability to see stuff occurring somewhere else from where your physical body is. So you literally can project your consciousness somewhere else to see what's going on. And I've done this a couple times myself, and I remember one of the most unique times was when my husband was on a month-long hike on the John Muir Trail. And there's a whole funny story that goes with it, but he went missing for 5 days. It turns out his satellite phone just wasn't working, but as it got towards day 4 and day 5, day 3, 4, and 5, we were getting really worried and all this. And so at one point I was just like, I need to know if he's okay. And I was able to push my consciousness to find him. And I saw him walking on this particular part of the path on this rocky outcropping. And I could see what he was wearing and exactly where he was. And so I could see, oh my gosh, he's okay. And I literally felt like I was standing right behind him in that moment. And then I felt it come right back to me. And when we did finally chat with him, after I kind of gave him the gears for just, no big deal, my satellite phone didn't work, so I didn't check in, even though he had somebody with him that had a satellite phone, but I digress. Love you, but I digress. When I explained to him what I saw, he said that the day that I explained when it was, what I saw, he said it was accurate to where he was and what he was wearing. So again, it's the ability to project your consciousness somewhere else on the planet to see something. So that's remote viewing, and clairs, most of us know about the clairs, but clairvoyance is the ability to see spirit and things in higher dimensions. Clairaudience is the ability to hear spirit. Claircognizance is the direct knowing that can come down from spirit. So remote viewing increasing, all the clairs increasing. I am not surprised is my answer. The last few months, since December 21st, 2020, we had a massive change in timeline on the planet as a collective. And basically, we are moving at a faster, higher trajectory of consciousness and conscious access to consciousness. So the collective is increasing more exponentially, and those that already have capacities and awareness of their gifts and openness of their gifts, their access within that is moving exponentially upwards as well. So you're going to find that the more that you tune into that and the more you try to access that, the more access you're going to have. Because right now, especially in this age of Aquarius, we have agreed as a consciousness of humanity to access a ton of stuff. So what I would do is, if you find it becoming overwhelming a little bit, just practice your grounding and come back to very 3D things like do your laundry, cut your lawn, shovel snow, whatever you need to do, come right back to 3D to recalibrate and then go again. And that'll help you keep the balance so it doesn't kind of pull you off. But if you're finding you're totally balanced and it's good, then you definitely can explore it. But it's just the answer to that is this faster, steeper trajectory that we are on as a collective, which amplifies what each of us is on individually. So I hope that helps to explain that. Okay, and the last one here is, will there ever be a time when our deceased loved ones are no longer accessible? And this is a great question. And so the answer is technically yes, but also no. I love this. I'm pretty much answering that to every question. But again, that speaks to the variability within the realms of spirit. But I'll explain why I'm saying this in regards to this question. So on average, when a soul passes, they will stay on the other side until everyone within their family line that they have been connected with crosses over as well. And so that's kind of staying with the idea of like this soul family grouping. Some say it's 140, some say it's 120, there's numbers. I call it a family grouping. And so on average, again, generalizing, great grandparents, parents, children, grandchildren, sometimes great-grandchildren, all of those will all file into Earth lives and then all file out before anyone starts coming in again. Because what happens is most of the time they want to kind of come together again and kind of reassess on the other side. And the other thing too is oftentimes they still want to look out for their family members that are still incarnated here and spend time on the other side helping to guide them and facilitate them, meet them on the other side when they cross. So they're usually not in a rush to come back in. So that's usually why I'm going to say you're never really going to hit a point where they're not accessible if they have already been accessible. Sometimes they may be busy doing something on the other side or not really available for that time or that reading, but usually it doesn't mean they're not accessible. Now, there are occasions where souls do come back in really early. They reincarnate right away. I have seen a couple situations where somebody's brother reincarnated as her son. And anytime that it happens that fast, it doesn't usually give the soul enough time on the other side to come to terms with their life that they lived, no matter what it was, and like really separate from it. And oftentimes when someone reincarnates again right away, they bring a lot of pieces and memories from that life before, which then really affects their life now. And I've seen in some cases where, they'll have memories of what the other person had in this child, and it's really confusing for the child as to what's going on or why they know this place or why they have dreams of this or so on and so forth. So that's the general, but it does happen where they come in again. So I would say the majority of my readings, most of the loved ones are still on the other side whenever we connect, but there is an odd time when they're not, and that's because they are incarnated again, but that's not very common. That being said, though, I want to add one extra level to this for those of you that are open to it, is we can still talk to the higher selves of people on the other side or people still alive on this side. So sometimes you could be speaking to someone, say your father passed, and we go and look on the other side and we're connecting to his higher self, but the higher self says, I'm not on the other side, I'm incarnated again. So yes, they are alive, but that higher self-consciousness is able to come through and communicate that, right? Or sometimes you can be wanting to connect with somebody who is alive and you can talk to their higher self. So that's where it gets a little muddied. So that's what I'm going to say. On average, they will be waiting for you on the other side and they will be available to connect with you if they already have. That little point where I'm saying if they already have is sometimes after a person passes, it takes them a bit of time to come to terms with their passing. This isn't the case always. I've seen some people transition instantly, like instant here, other side, whole and complete. totally great. Others I've seen it takes 24 hours, 48 hours, a couple weeks, a couple years, several years. And that all depends on many factors. Depends on their conscious awareness of the way spirit works on the other side. It depends on the amount of trauma or issues they dealt with leading up to their passing. It depends on if they were ready on a certain level to pass, or if it happened dramatically and it caught them off guard. It depends on the illness that they had, and if it really took everything out of them before they passed, then sometimes they just need to rest as a soul, right? I mean, think about going on a massive long journey. When you get home, you just want to rest. Everything's fine. You just want to sleep and eat for 2 days, and then you'll be social, right? So sometimes a soul needs to rest in a sense, or come to terms with, or make peace with their life experience. So that again can happen. The timeline for that to happen varies. But once you've connected with a spirit, you usually can connect with them continually until you see them as a soul when it's your time to cross. So there you have it, everyone. Those are great questions. I love this. I definitely want to do this again. I definitely do, because I love where the questions go and what it allows us to wrap up to. So thank you guys so much for your willingness to ask them, to step up and honor yourself by asking the question. So I'm deeply honored by being able to answer. The guides were happy for this as well. They're like, this is good, this is great, more of this. So I definitely want to do this, a couple times a year for sure. So thank you again, everyone. Lots of love and hugs to you. Please do like, share, and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. As well, I will be giving away a free reading very soon on YouTube. Once we get to 250, which is only a few away, I'm going to be giving away a free reading, and then again at 500. So you guys, take advantage of it. For anything else, please do check out avalonspirit.com for the Cosmic Consciousness Circle, for the Avalon Spirit Club, where we explore all things spirit, anything spirit, from sound bowls to Akashic Records. We have that one coming up on the 19th, all into the Akashic Records. Cosmic Consciousness that I lead is all about things in the cosmos, light beings, you name it. It goes out there, it goes far. And also check out the Lightworker Mentorship Circle if you're wanting to learn more about your own gifts and abilities. I basically help you pack your own personal backpack of the things you need to open your gifts, set out on your journey, and use them. So I look forward to more, you guys. There's more stuff coming down the pipe from avalonspirit.com very soon. So do stay tuned, and we'll chat soon.